Most archaeology tells us how people lived, what they ate, what they built, how they traveled. But every once in a while, archaeology does something worse. It tells us what people were afraid of. 2025 was one of those years. Not because we found monsters, but because we realized we were already looking at ourselves. Frozen terror, locked graves, lost laws, crowded human family trees, technologies that were never supposed to exist that early. This wasn't a year of answers. It was a year where the past leaned forward and said, "You don't know yourselves as well as you think." For nearly a century, one mummy sat in the Egyptian museum with her mouth wide open. She wasn't serene. She was screaming. So, archaeologists did what humans always do when something makes us uncomfortable. They explained it away. Poor embalming. Jaw slipped open. Case closed. Except in 2025, CT scans proved something deeply unsettling. She was embalmed perfectly. Elite resins, imported incense, expert wrapping, nothing careless. Her jaw wasn't left open. It was locked that way. She died in such extreme terror or pain that her muscles seized instantly, a rare condition called cadaveric spasm. The embalmers tried to close her mouth. They couldn't. So they wrapped her anyway. Her final moment preserved for 3,500 years. Not a symbol, not a ritual. A human reaction. Fear fossilized. Now jump forward and north to 17th century Poland, a place locals still call the Field of Vampires. Here, archaeologists didn't find honored graves. They found countermeasures. A young woman buried with a sickle laid across her throat, so if she rose, it would decapitate her. A padlock placed on her toe, locked, literally, so its spirit would dig away from the living. This wasn't superstition for fun. This was plague, war, mass death, and when fear has no explanation, it looks for containment. Egypt preserved the body at any cost. Poland restrained it at any cost. Different cultures. Same question: what happens after we stop breathing? We like to pretend human evolution was simple. It wasn't. In 2025, science basically said, stop imagining silhouettes. Here, look them in the eyes. First, Dragon Man, a massive human skull pulled from a well in China. Hidden there since the 1930s to prevent theft. Huge brow ridge, square eye sockets. Brain as large as ours. But he wasn't us. He wasn't Neanderthal. He was likely Denisovan, a group we only knew from DNA. Now we had a face. Dragon Man lived 146,000 years ago in Ice Age Asia, hunting mammoths while our ancestors were still figuring things out in Africa. Meanwhile, in Spain, archaeologists uncovered the oldest human face in Europe. 1.2 million years old, surprisingly modern. Put it together and the picture gets crowded. Neanderthals, Denisovans, hobbits in Indonesia, early Homo in Europe, and us. We didn't replace them. We met them, fought them, loved them. And now we read the last ones left, telling the story of everyone who didn't make it. Humanity wasn't a straight line. It was a crowded room. For years, we thought the Aegean Sea was a barrier. Water everywhere. Boats required. End of story. In 2025, archaeology quietly wrecked that idea. Stone tools, advanced ones, found along the Turkish coast. Levallois technique. 300,000 years old. Too early for ships. Because they didn't sail. During the Ice Age, sea levels dropped over 300 feet. The islands, not islands, Lesbos, Chios, Samos, just hills on a grassy plain. Mammoths walked through, humans followed. When the ice melted, the plains flooded. Homes vanished. Europe's front door sank beneath the sea. For centuries, Tartessos was a legend. A wealthy kingdom beyond Gibraltar, described by Greek writers, then gone. No cities, no people, no faces. Until 2025, 5 stone faces uncovered in southern Spain. Women wearing enormous gold earrings. A warrior with a crested helmet, identity, power, presence. Tartessos wasn't faceless. We just hadn't met them yet. Then came the darker truth. These statues were found in a sanctuary that had been deliberately destroyed. More than 50 animals sacrificed. The building burned. Buried, closed. The gods were entombed on purpose, not Atlantis. But no longer a myth. They're looking back at us now. We call it the Stone Age, because stone survives. But people didn't live in stone worlds. In 2025, 2 discoveries exposed that blind spot. In Tanzania, 1.5 million-year-old bone tools. Homo erectus, smaller brains, and yet deliberately shaped bone weapons. Barbed, designed to stay in the wound. That's planning. Then New Mexico, 8,800-year-old houses at Gypsum Overlook. Sunken floors, thermal design, heat-storing hearths. Human intelligence didn't suddenly appear. It didn't wait for cities. It's ancient, adaptive, and older than stone. Now for Australia, stone survives, but life is soft. In far north Queensland, archaeologists working with traditional owners uncovered something almost never found. Fiber, over 500 woven artifacts, bags, nets, cordage, preserved in dry sandstone, nearly 1,700 years old. This wasn't decoration. And here's the quiet punch. The techniques are still known today. 80 generations. Unbroken. Until the 1870s, gold rush artifacts appear. Wire, cloth, and the shelter is abandoned. Stone tells part of the story. Fiber tells you how people actually lived. Next up, we usually lose history in jungles or oceans. In 2025, we lost it in a filing cabinet. At Harvard University, a researcher opened a box labeled something boring like medieval legal document. Inside, only the original Magna Carta, the 1300 version, the one that made the rule of law permanent, mislabeled for decades. Which is the interesting part. If something this important can vanish in plain sight, what else is waiting for someone to read the label and say, "Hang on, this shouldn't be here"? If you made it this far on YouTube, there's a good chance you'd enjoy these stories even more on Spotify. Link is in the description. 2025 didn't show us monsters. It showed us ourselves. Afraid, brilliant, cruel, careful, creative, long before we were supposed to be. The past isn't finished teaching us. It's just waiting. Sometimes underground, sometimes on a shelf. Sometimes screaming, with its mouth still open. If you want more stories like this, careful, human, and willing to sit with uncertainty, subscribe. And if you'd like to help keep this project going, there's a small Patreon behind the scenes, scripts, early access, and the longer conversations. The link's in the description.